Close your eyes for a moment. Can you imagine waking up to water rushing through your bedroom door? Your children screaming, your elderly parents trapped upstairs. Everything you've ever owned floating away in brown, murky water that smells of death and destruction. This wasn't imagination for millions of people across Asia. This was their reality just days ago. On November 25th, something extraordinary happened in the Strait of Malacca. A cyclone formed where cyclones aren't supposed to exist. Scientists call it Cyclone Senyar, the first cyclonic storm to develop in that narrow waterway in 135 years. Think about that. The last time this happened, your great-great-grandparents weren't even born yet. Senyar was rare, unprecedented, and absolutely devastating. It moved like a serpent through northern Sumatra, looping from east to west, dumping torrential rain on communities that had never prepared for such a monster. But Senyar wasn't alone. Across the Bay of Bengal, Cyclone Ditwa was forming, tracking down Sri Lanka's coast with murderous intent. And in the Philippines, back-to-back typhoons Kalmegi and Feng Wang had already battered the islands. These storms didn't just pass through. They converged, interacted, fed off each other's energy, creating a perfect storm of destruction that meteorologists are still struggling to fully understand. The death toll? More than 1,700 confirmed dead. Hundreds still missing. Millions displaced. But these aren't just numbers on a screen. These are mothers, fathers, children, grandparents. Real people with real lives that ended in an instant or were forever changed. Let me tell you about Wasana Suthi. She runs a nursing home in Hat Yai, Thailand. When the floods came, she watched the water rise on the ground floor, then had to evacuate her elderly residents upstairs. Imagine carrying frail, terrified seniors up narrow stairs as muddy water chases you. The electricity cut out. She was left with battery-powered oxygen tanks and candlelight. For days, she and her staff worked in darkness, rationing what little supplies they had. Their only lifeline? A Thai army helicopter dropping food packages onto their roof. That was their only contact with the outside world while they fought to keep their residents alive. Or consider what happened in North Sumatra. A woman I'll call Agusari told reporters how she heard someone screaming from her garden. "Run, run, run, the big water's coming." She grabbed her child and fled. Within minutes, the water in her house was knee-deep. Within an hour, her entire neighborhood was underwater. She lost everything. Her home, her possessions, her sense of security. Now she's one of 570,000 displaced people in Indonesia alone, living in emergency shelters, wondering if life will ever return to normal. In Sri Lanka, the scenes were even more apocalyptic. Maluka Kumari saw the flood warning on television, but never expected the river to overflow so quickly. She rushed out of her house with nothing. No clothes, no food, nothing. She told reporters they hadn't even had breakfast. 2 of her sons caught the flu in the evacuation shelter. She had no money for medicine. Picture yourself in that situation. You've lost everything. Your children are sick, and you're completely helpless. The statistics are staggering, almost impossible to comprehend. In Indonesia, 604 people confirmed dead, 464 still missing. Over 1.1 million people affected. In Sri Lanka, 490 people dead, 366 missing. Nearly 1 million people impacted. In Thailand, 176 dead. In Malaysia, 2 confirmed deaths. But behind every single one of these numbers is a story, a family destroyed, a future stolen. What makes this disaster even more heartbreaking is how preventable much of it was. Experts point to decades of deforestation in Sumatra. The island has lost millions of hectares of forest over the past 20 years. Those forests were nature's sponge, absorbing heavy rain and preventing flash floods. Without them, rain that should have been absorbed became deadly torrents of water rushing down mountainsides, carrying everything in their path. Illegal mining activities weakened hillsides, making them prone to catastrophic landslides. In Agam Regency, West Sumatra, 120 people were killed by a single flash flood. 30 more died when a landslide buried the entrance gate of Padang Panjang. These weren't acts of God alone. These were consequences of human choices. Let me paint you a picture of what rescue workers are facing. In Aceh province, entire villages remain cut off. Aid hasn't reached them. Survivors are rationing food, saying they only have enough for 2 more days. After that, they face starvation. Rescue workers are trekking on foot through waist-deep mud, sometimes chest-deep, searching for bodies. They're finding people who climb trees to escape the water, spending hours clinging to branches, waiting for rescue. Some made it. Many didn't. The mud is so thick, so pervasive, that heavy machinery can't reach many affected areas. Everything has to be done by hand. In Sri Lanka, the Disaster Management Director General called this a humanitarian crisis of historic proportions. The last time Sri Lanka faced something similar was the 2004 tsunami. You remember that disaster? 230,000 people dead across multiple countries. Aceh province in Indonesia, which suffered the worst tsunami damage, now says this flood feels like it's happening all over again. District officials told media they've given up hope of receiving adequate government assistance. They feel abandoned, left to fend for themselves while politicians make promises from comfortable offices in Jakarta. And here's something that doesn't get enough attention. President Prabowo Subianto of Indonesia visited affected areas, acknowledged that aid hasn't reached isolated communities, and said the country is doing its best. But he has not declared a national emergency. Without that declaration, resources remain fragmented. Each regional government is left to coordinate its own relief efforts with limited budgets and overstretched personnel. Environmental activists and social critics are demanding he declare a national emergency to unlock faster. More coordinated resources. Why the hesitation? Bureaucracy? Politics? Pride? While politicians deliberate, people are dying. Sri Lanka took a different approach. President Anura Kumara Dissanayake immediately declared a state of emergency. He appealed to the international community and to Sri Lankan citizens living abroad, setting up special bank accounts for direct donations to relief efforts. He addressed the nation, promising to build back better. India launched Operation Neighborhood First, dispatching naval ships with relief materials, field hospitals, and emergency rescue teams. Over 25,000 personnel were deployed in Sri Lanka alone. That's the level of response needed. That's what leadership looks like in a crisis. But let's talk about the survivors, the people who made it through against impossible odds. Rescue teams found one man clinging to a coconut tree in Indonesia, surrounded by floodwater, waiting for hours until boats could reach him. Others recounted climbing onto rooftops, watching their neighbors' homes collapse, hearing screams they couldn't respond to. A travel agent named Ruvinda Bernard volunteered with a charity providing meals to displaced families. He got a call about 3 families stuck on a roof with no way down. The Colombo Rowing Club donated a boat. Police arranged a truck to transport it through the floodwaters to reach those families. That's the kind of improvisation, community spirit, and determination keeping people alive. There are stories of hope too. Risham Ahmed, organizing meals at the Dalyugala Thakya Mosque in Sri Lanka, told reporters they're preparing rice parcels with chicken and dal curry for flood victims. But the requests for food keep increasing because people who relied on daily wage work can't find employment. They're running low on savings. They're worried about piecing their lives back together. Moses Akash de Silva, director of the Voice for the Voiceless Foundation, said his charity has provided 4,000 meals to families near Colombo who lost everything. The economic impact will be felt for years. Preliminary estimates suggest damages exceeding $3.5 billion across the affected region. But that's just infrastructure, homes, roads, bridges. How do you calculate the cost of trauma? Of children who watch their parents drown? Of elderly people who lost everything they spent a lifetime building? Of farmers whose fields are buried under meters of mud and debris? Hat Yai in Thailand recorded 335 millimeters of rainfall in a single day on November 21st. That's the heaviest rainfall recorded in a single day in that region in 300 years. Let that sink in. 3 centuries of weather records, and this storm broke them all. Scientists are clear about what's happening. Climate change is making these storms more intense and more frequent. Warmer ocean temperatures provide more energy for cyclones to develop and strengthen. A warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, which translates to heavier rainfall. The UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific warned that rising temperatures are fundamentally reshaping the region's risk landscape. What used to be once-in-a-century disasters are now happening every few years. The disasters aren't anomalies anymore. They're the new normal. Attribution studies are already underway. Researchers at the Grantham Institute for Climate Change used computer modeling to determine that climate change increased rainfall from Typhoon Feng-Huang, which hit the Philippines in November, by 10.5%. That might not sound like much, but when you're talking about a storm that already dropped record amounts of rain, an additional 10% means thousands more homes flooded, hundreds more lives lost. Every fraction of a degree of global warming makes these disasters worse. Every year we delay meaningful climate action, more people will die in floods, droughts, heat waves, and storms. But we can't just blame climate change and walk away. Yes, climate change is making storms worse, but human actions are amplifying the damage. Deforestation turns natural sponges into mudslides. Illegal mining weakens hillsides. Rapid urbanization without proper drainage infrastructure leaves cities vulnerable to flooding. Wetland loss eliminates natural flood barriers. Poor land management in hilly areas creates conditions for deadly landslides. These are policy choices. These are decisions made by governments, corporations, and individuals that have consequences. And those consequences are measured in lives lost. Where do we go from here? Relief efforts will continue for weeks. The World Food Programme is providing emergency food and shelter kits. The Sri Lankan Air Force is conducting airdrops to villages cut off by landslides. Blood donation campaigns are being organized because hospitals are running critically low on supplies. Reconstruction will take years. But will we rebuild smarter, or will we just rebuild and wait for the next disaster? Will Indonesia finally crack down on illegal deforestation and mining? Will coastal communities invest in better early warning systems and evacuation infrastructure? Will wealthy nations provide the climate financing they've promised to help vulnerable countries adapt? These questions matter because this disaster isn't over. Heavy rains are forecast to continue. More landslides are expected. Rivers remain swollen, threatening to overflow again. And the northeast monsoon season, strengthened by La Niña conditions, is predicted to continue until early next year. The people of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines are living through a nightmare that hasn't ended. They're exhausted, traumatized, grieving, and terrified of what comes next. So I ask you, wherever you are in the world, what will you do? Will you donate to relief organizations? Will you pressure your government to take climate change seriously? Will you reduce your own carbon footprint? Will you share these stories so the world doesn't forget? Because here's the truth. Climate disasters don't stay contained in one region. What's happening in Asia today will happen elsewhere tomorrow. We're all connected. We all share one planet. And that planet is sending us a very clear message. The question is, are we listening? The families huddled in evacuation centers tonight. The children who watched their homes disappear. The elderly clinging to hope in nursing homes surrounded by mud. They all deserve better. They deserve a world that acts on climate change before it's too late. They deserve governments that prioritize people over profit. They deserve a future where storms like Senyar and Ditwa remain rare, not routine. The time for action isn't tomorrow. It isn't next year. It's right now. Because every moment we wait, another family loses everything. Another child loses a parent. Another community is wiped off the map. This is our shared crisis, and it demands our shared response. What will yours be?